So, start off with a quote from Milton Friedman. Freedom is a rare and delicate flower. So I have to tell you, he's married, his wife's name was Rose. So I said, Milton, get me a photo of Rose wearing or holding a red rose. And he said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. Rose hates roses. It's probably because when she was dating, everybody brought her a rose, of course, and stuff. So I thought that was pretty funny. Because I want a picture of her and Milton together, her holding a rose with that quote, freedom is a rare and delicate flower. And then, of course, you have George Stigler saying competition is a tough weed, not a delicate flower. And I like that because people underestimate the ability of competitors to break the monopolies that private enterprise often creates. Okay. So, let's see here. Next, it's not moving.
Professor Skousen.
Do I need to say?
The
this
display is
getting in the way?
blocking, yeah.
All right, we'll change books. Being in Chicago, friends with foes, how's that? No, it's still frozen. Is yours moving?
Let's see. Try again.
There we go. So, this is my favorite picture of Milton Friedman with John Kenneth Galbraith. All great economists are tall. There are two exceptions. John Kenneth Galbraith, the tall one, and Milton Friedman, the short one. Did you figure out that puzzle? That's a pretty good one.
Because Galbraith isn't a great economist.
Galbraith's not a great economist.
Friedman's short.
And Friedman's short. Okay. So this is your typical standard graph showing monopoly power. What's interesting is that in economics, monopoly power only makes sense if you have an inelastic demand curve. If you don't have an inelastic demand curve, even monopolists there's no advantage to raising prices. And in fact, if you raise prices, you get less revenue under an elastic demand curve. So you have to have an inelastic demand curve. And theoretically, that's the idea, that you're producing a product that no one else can produce, and you dominate. Okay, so that's the point there. And now you have what is taught, and this is standard models with the perfect competition model, which is large number of buyers and sellers, no product differentiation, no barriers to entry or exit, information is transparent. And of course, the answer is most of those you don't get even in a private economy. All right. Many times, the barriers to entry, you require such a huge capital expenditure to start an automobile company for machinery buildings or housing. You have to put up millions of dollars. So there's a natural barrier in many cases to economic development. So as Joseph Schumpeter said, the perfect competition model is like Hamlet without the prince. It's not realistic to assume this kind of thing. And they always give two examples, the two industries that qualify for this. Do you know what they are? Agriculture. So there's lots of producers of wheat and corn and stuff like that, right? And the stock market. The stock market has lots of buyers and sellers. Okay? But the automobile industry, they're growing. The number of buyers, it used to be the big three in America, and that was it. And now that'd be an interesting question. How many different major automobile producers and sellers are in the United States? How many do you think there are? There's got to be at least 20 at this point. it's increasing. So the idea that the automobile industry is some kind of monopoly, they used to say that, but it just doesn't apply anymore. Why? Because of globalization. If you had Donald Trump's way, you would have monopoly power. Globalization has sharply reduced monopoly power in so many ways. No product differentiation? Well, the whole idea of market capitalism is to create market differentiation. And then sometimes it goes the other way too, like generic drugs. Generic drugs are basically saying, hey, our pill is just as good as the brand pill, the aspirin or what have you, compared to Anacin or what the brand pills. Of course, there are lots of barriers to entry, natural barriers to entry, and information is not always transparent. I mean, Coca-Cola has kept its secret chemical plan a secret for years, right? And somehow they've been able to do it. If you go to any major corporation, you can't just walk in. You have to get you have to make an appointment, and you sometimes go through some kind of security system and stuff like that. You have to have a need to know. So there is no, I mean, there's transparency, but there's a lot of incentive for that lack. So very few industries qualify for the so-called perfect competition model. And the perfect competition model suggests that profit margin is going to be, excessive profit margin is totally eliminated. And that's not a model that anybody in the private business wants to have. So you have this deadweight loss in monopoly. And this chart does apply when government imposes a monopoly power, which they've done many times over the years. And post office is an example, though that's deteriorated quite a bit. But you have the deadweight loss right here. And that is a problem. So the chart is useful to demonstrate that monopoly power is not good. But in the private sector, you really have to question whether there's really a deadweight loss there or not. So Adam Smith said, who would like to read this? Okay.
People of the same trade seldom meet together, even for merriment and diversion, but the conversation ends in a conspiracy against the public or in some contrivance to raise prices.
So there is crony capitalism that goes on. There is an effort to monopolize. They do try to get the government to give them a monopoly power. And they do charge excessive higher prices, but again, only if there's an inelastic demand curve. It doesn't work otherwise. So they restrict output, they don't innovate like they should, and there's heavy bureaucracy and inefficiency. So you want to minimize. So the Adam Smith model, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, the Adam Smith model you want to encourage robust competition in your economy. You want to make it easy to get permits, to set up a business. And there is, the Economist does a survey every year of how easy it is to start a business. And the US is fairly decent. Hong Kong, up until recently, has been one of the best in the world. You could sign up a business in a day. India, on the other hand, you can go 3 months, you can go a year, you can go 2 years with not getting a permit to start a business. So and the US is becoming more and more difficult to start a business. So that is a problem. Maybe they'll reverse that, but that is a major issue. So these are examples of government monopolies. Private enterprise, they got government exclusive deals. And a lot of people even argue that patent is a government form of monopoly power and not just defending property rights, but giving them monopoly power. And there's all kinds of legal battles all the time on whether you infringe or not on somebody's patent or copyright. There has to be a proper balance here, is my opinion. I mean, there are libertarians who argue for no patent law, no copyright law. My wife wrote a book called Matriarchs of the Messiah about the ancestors of Jesus Christ in the Old Testament. And it's a pretty popular book, and she went online one time on Amazon, and there were 6 copies of exactly her book with a different title. And they were published by Chinese knockoff artists. And you know, we're not going to sit around and sue these people and all that sort of thing. We just went to Amazon and said, listen, they're not the author. Can you take that down? Which they did. But there's all kinds of infringement. And you can spend your life fighting these people instead of just trying to stay ahead of the competition is the best solution, in my opinion. So all of these companies are poorly managed because of government monopoly. But what about private monopoly power? What about that? That's the big issue. So historically, IBM used to be a major force. They dominated. 80% of the computer business was by IBM up until the 70s. Then it just gradually deteriorated. They've had to recreate their whole business. 40% of IBM now is software. And they're one of the leaders in AI. And the reason they've survived is because they've had to adjust to the competition that went on. Google dominates the online search engine, but there are new competitors all the time coming on. That one of the problems with Google is, I don't know this, but they keep track of everything. When you go on Google and you click on something, they keep track of everything you do. And a lot of people don't like this. They go to DuckDuckGo, and there's several other different search engines that you do that do not keep track. So if you have anything that you consider sensitive, do not go on Google. You need to search on another search engine that maintains privacy. So Facebook dominates, Amazon dominates, all of these things, but so you have what is known as the concentration ratio. This is what economists use. So the concentration ratio says what company has most of the business. If it's 80%, the concentration ratio is 80%. Or in the case of the automobile industry in the 50s and 60s, how much of the automobile industry was dominated by the big 3? And it's like 80%. And so that's viewed as a monopoly, and we need to go after them. The government has their antitrust division to go after them. And almost in every case, it's been a total waste of taxpayers' money to go after. Because while they're suing them, other companies are eroding the concentration of these private firms. So there's your search engine. See how Google has 93%. This was in 2017. I bet you if you did it today, it's not 93%. It's going to drop. So I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody could go online and find out what the concentration ratio is. So what is the typical attitude? Well, we need to sue Google and split them up or force them to sell off some of their assets, or who knows what you can do. The problem is that the reason Google is number one is they beat out the competition. They're ahead of the competition. I mean, Hal Varian, who's the economist at Google, I never forget emailing him one time and I said, so Hal, listen, it really angers me that you keep track of everything I do on Google. I think I'm going to go to DuckDuckGo as an alternative. What do you think of that, Hal? And Hal said, you go right ahead, Mark. He could care less. Yeah. Well, anyway. So I call it creative disruption model. I use the Schumpeter talked about the creative destruction model. I prefer Clay Christensen from Harvard's creative disruption. I prefer that because it's not a war, okay? You know, it's not like you're killing people, the destruction type of thing. So disruption, I think, is a better term. But who would like to read the quote from Schumpeter there? Great Austrian economist, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Capitalism can never be stationary. The economic process incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. Now, a theoretical construction, the perfectly competitive model, which neglects this essential element, is like Hamlet without the Danish prince.
And then he said in 1934, you want to read that?
It is, however, the producer who as a rule initiates economic change, and consumers are educated by him if necessary. They are, as it were, taught to want new things.
Okay, so if you want a dynamic, creative, disrupting type of market, robust competition, you have to encourage entrepreneurs to create new products and to take on the companies that dominate, okay? And it's what is called the leapfrogging effect. What is the leapfrogging effect? This is a term that was used by Benjamin Rogie. Any of you ever heard of Benjamin Rogie? So Benjamin Rogie was a professor at, I'm trying to think of the college, Wabash College. Wabash College is a private college, all male, still all male. In, I think it's in Ohio. I've been there, I gave a lecture there one time. Still all male. Wabash College. And Ben Rogie was the professor there. And he was friends with Milton Friedman. He invited Milton Friedman to come and give a series of lectures. These lectures turned into what famous book? Capitalism and Freedom, his most popular book. You go into any Barnes & Noble and you'll see a copy of Capitalism and Freedom. Came out in 1962. So Ben Rogie came up with the leapfrogging effect. And what did he mean by that? He said, over time, competition erodes the dominant firm. So in 1920 in automobiles, it was Ford Motor Company. By 1967 and 1997, it was General Motors. And today, it's Toyota. And tomorrow, it might be Kia, for all we know. In the computer industry, it was IBM, and Microsoft, and now Apple. Leapfrogging, okay? So give it time. You don't need antitrust at all. In the financial services, Citibank, Bank of America, AIG, Goldman Sachs, now JP Morgan Chase. In food and beverage, Armour & Company, General Foods, Campbell, then Pepsi-Cola. In aerospace, Litton Industries, then Boeing, and I suspect it's Airbus now. Has leapfrogged over Boeing because of the MAX problems that Boeing has had. In retailing, Sears Roebuck, which is now virtually bankrupt. Walmart, and then Amazon. Amazon is now bigger than Walmart. Well, maybe not. Walmart has really done well recently. I'd have to look. So this leapfrogging effect is something that government antitrust people just don't recognize. And so what is the correct model of competition? If you happen to know, I got this one from Murray Rothbard. Murray Rothbard created this chart here where you basically have average cost, and so this is your ultimate firm where opportunity, it includes opportunity cost right there, where supply and demand reaches equilibrium. And you have a model where total cost, your ultimate goal is to minimize costs and maximize profits. And under a competitive model, that is the best way to describe equilibrium. And as you point out, we move away from equilibrium rather easily. So is antitrust policy good or bad? You have the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, the Clayton Act of 1914, Federal Trade Act of 1914 to go after the big trusts that were there, as you can see there. And so you have famous antitrust cases, Standard Oil 1911. Now that's a really interesting story because this is the Standard Oil story. Okay, so it started off, anybody know the original name of the Rockefeller Company? Standard Oil, right there. Okay, Standard Oil. So they busted Standard Oil into, antitrust won the case, and they split up Rockefeller into all of these companies. Okay. And that switched into these, and now you have these companies. Okay. What happened was when they split up Standard Oil, Rockefeller became richer because individually each one of these companies were worth more on the marketplace. So it backfired on them. It was just, it did just the opposite of what they intended to do. Unintended consequences of the antitrust breaking up Standard Oil turned in making Rockefeller even wealthier. IBM, they went after IBM for what, 11, 12, 13 years in a lawsuit. They lost that lawsuit. But meanwhile, IBM lost their market dominance because of competition coming on board. So they decided to go after Microsoft in '97 over 2001. They lost that too. But meanwhile, Microsoft lost a dominant share of the marketplace. It's like these government officials, I'm really hopeful that Dodge will just close down the antitrust division of the Justice Department. And it's interesting that stocks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and some of the others that engage in M&A activity, mergers and acquisition, their stock has skyrocketed lately. Why? Because apparently the Trump administration is very favorable toward M&A activity. Can you imagine, it was, what is it, Spirit Airlines, I'm trying to think of the most recent merger of Spirit Airlines and
United.
I'm not sure which.
JetBlue.
It was United or some of the others, but clearly they needed to do it to remain competitive. And the Biden administration said, we're not going to allow this. I mean, it's just stupid government activity just to justify their existence. So nobody in the aerospace industry thought that the lawsuit denying, they went through all of this to combine, and then they were denied by the Biden administration. It was just an absolute disaster. One of the best cases of where you deregulated the airline industry was in 1978, and this turned out to be an incredible success. There was a lot of chaos and bankruptcies major airline companies. It used to be a time before your time, Darren, you may remember this, I don't know, where the CAB, the Civil Aeronautics Board, was this government agency that set the price of every airline ticket, and also where you would fly to. And the only exemption was within states. Within states, the federal government had no power, the CAB has no power over California and Texas, Arizona. No, the bigger states started developing airlines, like Southwest Airlines developed from Texas, and Pacific Airlines in California, so they would fly, and the rates were much lower, and they had a lot more airline flights between LA and San Diego and San Francisco, and it was extremely successful, and they said, hey, why don't we just do this on a federal basis? And so they eliminated the CAB under Jimmy Carter, and total deregulation. So airlines could fly anywhere and set their own price. It was all competitive, and it turned out to be a huge success. Prices came down, number of flights increased dramatically, profits, some went bankrupt, but the others became profitable. They had lots of M&A, merger activity, very dynamic, very chaotic, but it turned out to be a big success. And that's what we have now, where you go online instead of getting a little manual that says what the prices are. And the prices change every day, right? So, great success story. I think that's it. In the whole business, I get back to the Adam Smith model of with the rule of law, the basic rules of the game, and you encourage robust competition, you maximize freedom. That's the ultimate goal of all good economists.